A Sony executive called Blake Lively a terrorist in a private email. Ryan Reynolds called studio executives blunt instruments with no ideas. And Taylor Swift texted Blake that Baldoni was playing a tiny violin. None of that was supposed to go public, but a judge unsealed all of it, and I read every single page. These are the 400 pages of court filings in the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni case, and buried around page 247, there's a text message that completely reframes how you see this entire situation. We're going to get to it, but first you need the full picture, because without context, that message means nothing. Here's why I made this video. Every week, a new headline drops about this case, and every week, millions of people pick a side based on a TikTok or a tweet from someone who clearly did not open the actual filings. I've watched it happen for a year and a half, and it's been eating at me, because what the internet thinks this case is about and what these documents actually contain are two completely different stories. Nobody has time to read 400 pages of legal documents, I understand that. You see a headline that confirms what you already believe, you scroll past, you move on. The problem is that this case refuses to fit into a clean hero versus villain storyline. It is messy and layered, and the details that will decide what happens when the trial begins on May 18th are buried in exhibit numbers and footnotes that almost nobody is reading. So whether you lean toward Blake's side or Justin's side, or you think everyone involved lost the plot a long time ago, you deserve to know what's actually in these pages before you form an opinion. Not the PR spin, not the curated clips, the real version straight from the court filings. That's what this video is. Let's start from the beginning so it actually makes sense. Blake Lively originally filed 13 separate claims against Justin Baldoni and his production company, Wayfarer Studios. The allegations covered sexual harassment on the set of It Ends With Us, retaliation after she raised complaints, a coordinated smear campaign allegedly run by a crisis PR team, and defamation. 13 claims. That's what she walked in with, and here's the part most people online are completely missing. In April of this year, Judge Lewis Lyman threw out 10 of those 13 claims in a 152-page ruling. Gone. All of them. That includes the sexual harassment allegations against Baldoni personally, which is the thing that dominated every headline for over a year. The judge ruled that Lively couldn't bring a federal harassment claim because she worked as an independent contractor, not an employee. Her California harassment claim got tossed, too, because the filming took place in New Jersey, not California. Jurisdictional and contractual technicalities wiped out the claims that the entire internet had been arguing about. 3 claims survived: breach of contract, retaliation, and aiding and abetting retaliation, with that last one aimed at Baldoni's crisis PR team rather than Baldoni himself. He's been removed as an individual defendant entirely. So when the trial opens on May 18th in a federal courtroom in New York City, the sexual harassment allegations that fueled a year and a half of online debate will not be part of it. Not because they were proven false, but because of how the legal system categorized Blake's working relationship and where the filming happened. That distinction matters, and almost nobody is talking about it. Now let's get into the part that changed everything, the unsealed documents. In January of this year, the judge ordered hundreds of exhibits unsealed: text messages, emails, deposition transcripts, voice messages. All of it entered the public record. And what came out of those pages painted a picture where nobody walks away looking clean. Blake's private messages from May of 2023, while they were still in the middle of filming, show her venting to a journalist about how difficult things were on set. She described coming home and crying, and she referred to certain people involved in the production as creeps. Texts she exchanged with Taylor Swift later on were even more pointed. She called Baldoni a clown and a doofus director. Swift, in her own messages, referred to Baldoni dismissively and compared him to someone playing a tiny violin. Those texts between Blake and Taylor are now permanently part of the public record after Baldoni's legal team fought to get access to them, and they definitely add color to how Blake's inner circle viewed the situation behind closed doors. But here's the thing: Baldoni's side of the documents isn't any prettier. Internal communications show he was equally frustrated during production, venting privately about tensions with Blake over creative control of the film. And then there are the messages from his crisis PR team, which is where the remaining case actually lives. The allegation that goes to trial is that after Blake raised workplace complaints, this team launched a coordinated effort to undermine her public image before the movie even premiered. Unsealed texts and emails attributed to Reynolds reveal intense hostility directed at Baldoni. He reportedly called certain senior executives involved in the production blunt instruments with limited communication skills. Documents describe him as enraged during a meeting at the couple's New York home where he demanded an apology from Baldoni directly. And the filings show Reynolds didn't stop there. He enlisted his personal talent agent and the executive chairman of WME's parent company, Endeavor, to advocate on Blake's behalf against Baldoni. Baldoni's legal filings accused Reynolds of trying to accumulate power over the project, and the unsealed communications, at least partially, support the idea that Reynolds was pulling levers behind the scenes. And that brings us to one of the wildest parts buried in these documents, the Sony emails. Despite publicly supporting Blake Lively throughout the marketing of It Ends With Us, some Sony Pictures executives were saying something very different in private. Internal communications show senior staff at the studio blaming Blake for making negative publicity worse. One executive reportedly used an extremely hostile term to describe her. A specific sore point was the timing of Blake promoting her personal hair care brand during the film's press tour, which studio insiders viewed as self-serving and distracting from the movie itself. Sony stood behind Blake in public while privately treating her as the source of their problems, and those emails are now sitting in a court file for anyone to read. And this is where it gets even more complicated, because the case tried to pull in another massive name. Baldoni's team attempted to subpoena Taylor Swift, alleging that Blake and Ryan used Swift's influence to pressure him into accepting changes Blake wanted to make to a scene in the film. Baldoni's side went further and accused Blake of essentially leveraging private text messages with Swift to ensure Swift's public support during the controversy. Swift denied any involvement in the production, and the subpoena was withdrawn after the court criticized it. But in June of 2025, the judge granted Baldoni access to Swift's text conversations with Blake. And what those messages revealed about Swift's level of involvement became part of the evidentiary record. Depositions from co-star Jenny Slate and other cast and crew members also entered the file, adding testimony from people who were actually on set during production. Now let's talk about where things stand right now, because the situation has shifted dramatically in the last few weeks. Settlement talks collapsed. A magistrate judge held separate conference calls with both sides in early April, with Blake's team calling in at 3 p.m. and Baldoni's team at 4 p.m. The judge searched for any common ground she could build on, and she found none. Neither side would agree to anything, and both rejected any deal to avoid trial. This is going all the way. Blake's legal team recently filed to block the jury from hearing any details about her and Ryan Reynolds' personal finances. She had originally claimed more than $100 million in losses as part of a defamation claim, but that claim was one of the 10 that got thrown out. Her attorneys argue that exposing the couple's wealth to the jury would be prejudicial and irrelevant to the 3 remaining claims. On the other side of the courtroom, Baldoni's team filed motions to keep certain past clients of his crisis PR team from being mentioned during trial. They don't want the jury making associations between the PR professionals accused of running a smear campaign against Blake and other controversial public figures those same professionals have represented. Both sides are fighting over every detail that the jury will and won't be allowed to hear. So when the doors open on May 18th, here's exactly what 12 jurors will be asked to decide. Did Wayfarer Studios retaliate against Blake Lively after she raised workplace complaints about conduct on set? Did the crisis PR team aid and abet that retaliation by executing a coordinated campaign against her? And did Wayfarer breach its contractual obligations to her in connection with the film? That's it. 3 questions. Not whether Baldoni harassed her, not whether she was difficult to work with, not whether Ryan Reynolds overstepped his role. The narrow legal question comes down to retaliation and whether a PR operation was weaponized in response to someone speaking up about workplace issues. And after reading every page, I can tell you that the evidence cuts both ways. The crisis PR communications are genuinely damaging for Baldoni's side, but Blake's own messages, combined with Ryan Reynolds' aggressive behind-the-scenes maneuvering and the involvement of powerful industry figures on their behalf, give the defense plenty to work with. Both legal teams know this, which is exactly why neither side agreed to settle. All right, here are the 3 things from these 400 pages that I think are worth remembering after you close this video. The first one is this: the case that everyone on the internet has been arguing about for a year and a half is not the case that's going to trial. The harassment claims are gone. What remains is a retaliation and breach of contract dispute against a production company and a PR firm, and that is a fundamentally different legal battle than what millions of people have been debating online. If you walk away from this video understanding nothing else, understand that, because most of the commentary you'll see in the next month will still be treating this like a harassment trial, and it isn't one anymore. The second takeaway is that nobody in these 400 pages comes out clean. Blake vented about Baldoni in private messages. Baldoni's team allegedly ran a PR playbook against her. Ryan Reynolds pulled every industry lever he could reach. Sony executives talked behind everyone's backs. Taylor Swift got dragged into it despite trying to stay out. Every single person involved was playing some version of a power game, and the only question the jury has to answer is whether one side's moves crossed a legal line. And the third thing, the one that stuck with me the longest after I finished reading, is that this case is really about who gets to control the story. Strip away the celebrity names and the gossip, and what you're left with is a case about what happens when someone raises a complaint in a workplace, and the response isn't an investigation or a conversation. It's a PR strategy designed to discredit them before they can speak. However the verdict goes in May, that question is going to echo through Hollywood and well beyond it for a long time. If this breakdown helped you actually understand what's happening in this case, subscribe to this channel. That's all I'm asking. Because when the trial kicks off on May 18th, I'll be covering it in real time. The opening statements, the witness testimony, the cross-examinations, and every filing that drops along the way. I'll keep reading the documents so you don't have to. And speaking of documents, in my next video, I'm breaking down the specific crisis PR playbook that Baldoni's team allegedly deployed against Blake Lively, because those internal communications read like a step-by-step manual for destroying someone's reputation. If you've ever wondered how that kind of operation actually works behind the scenes in Hollywood, that one's going to be worth your time. I'll see you there.